Hey guys, I'm wearing my new Black Depression hoodie and it's going to be a completely different format today, guys, simply because we've just been seeing this YouTube, Michelle Grace I think the name was where she's been hitting her 2-year-old on a regular basis, and you know, that whole controversy coming out, and I think it just reminded me of being that young and being powerless to defend myself. An adult person attacking a 3 or 4-year-old. I'm genuinely being blinded by their enlightenment. That's okay. It'll just be, everything will be purple afterwards. God, I'm even getting shaky thinking about it. I'll be bad at maintaining eye contact, guys, sorry. So I'm going to be looking slightly below the lens today because honestly it's just too bright and it just makes me squint, and that's just not a good look for me. I look very grumpy when I'm squinty. Well, that would be fair because today's video is just me being sad about things and remembering my childhood and all the awful things that happened. So I don't even know what I'm going to title this. I was literally just thinking my granddad was a monster, but like I honestly think that's a little bit vague and a little bit direct. Anyway, yeah, it's basically I've had a rough couple of days, especially yesterday. I've been actually zoning out and I'll show you an example of just what I've been doing. Just like I'll be doing my normal thing on my phone or whatever, and then I'll just have a flashback of when I was 3 or 4 years old and what was happening at that time, and I'll literally just like start staring off into the distance and just sinking back into traumatic memories. I'm an adult, I'm a 23-year-old, would have thought it would be happening when I'm a bit younger, but I think that's just part of a thing that happens with adulthood. I think as you grow older and you start, all of your formative memories start to settle in, I think a lot of the stuff that you repress or you just didn't think about as much as a kid start to come back. And for me, I had a rough few years as a kid, the entire time as a kid, simply because my granddad, on my dad's side, sorry dad, essentially when I was about 3, 4 years old, my mum and dad, you know, they're busy, they're doing their thing. My granddad would take care of me, my brother and my sister for, you know, a few days, like a day at a time or like for an afternoon or something. And even just remembering recently, I remember how terrified I was every time one of those days would come, simply because he was a bully and he was abusive and he was violent and completely unprovoked as well. There's no reason to hit a 3-year-old. And I remember even back then thinking I'd done something wrong, but I was so scared of him that I would be so careful not to do anything wrong or piss him off or even just say anything out of line, because he would immediately jump into a beating. And I don't know why, but he especially targeted me. I mean, my brother and sister, they got a bit as well, but I don't know why, but I was his focus. And I have a specific memory of literally just having little wooden building blocks, in fact playing with my brother who was right next to me, and I remember him just like looking at us, just like saying, get rid of those, clean them up now. And then, you know, we're scrambled to start clearing them up, and I just remember looking at him because he startled me, and I remember as he looked at me and he just immediately ran up to me and jabbed me really hard in the chest with his wooden walking stick. Oh god, I'm really fighting, just zoning out into these memories again, man.
If you need a hug, please ask, because I would like to come and hug you.
I might do. Thank you very much, Bubba. And honestly, you're the only thing keeping me sane right now. I love you too.
Don't come and get a kiss. Thank you so much. You're so strong.
I hope I'm not the one that has to edit it, because I'll just be crying the whole time.
No, I'm going to edit it.
Thank you. He just ran up to me. Well, he's kind of an old man, but like he was very strong, and he just ran up to me and jabbed me in the chest with his wooden walking stick multiple times, knocking me to the floor even. And I remember being so confused as to why. Like, I usually didn't ask because it just resulted in another beating, but I remember being at the dinner table later on and asking him why, and apparently it's because I made a face at him and I was like, oh. But I was literally a kid who was scared of this man and just looking at him afraid, and that's what made him attack me. And I remember having grazed skin and bruises on my chest afterwards, and it was making my breathing quite hard because it had winded me quite badly. And I wanted help as well because it hurt, and we were at the dinner table afterwards, and I was saying how just where he had hit me with his stick, he was making it hard to breathe and it hurt, and he immediately just started shouting about how I was nothing and how I was a wuss. He used the word Wally, a little girl, and saying that, and I remember him shoving me off the chair because of that. And it's weird because I only just been remembering this stuff. I don't know why it's been laying dormant in my head for literally about 20 years. God, it's weird thinking I've been alive for 20 years because when I think about that, I just think I'm a kid again. The memories are so vivid. I remember the colour of everything, I remember where everything was, and I remember the faces, and I remember everything. And I remember even him, grabbing me by my clothes and picking me up and just throwing me against, like, the wall or the sofa and stuff. And I so distinctly remember wetting myself in midair and my siblings both being sort of in the corner looking in terror, just hoping not to be hit as well. And I never got any explanation for why he kept doing it and why he was so violent. For some reason, it was especially towards me, and I don't think I misbehaved. I remember trying to be so careful because I was trying to do anything to just avoid a beating that day or any day that he was around. I think my dad is probably scared of him as well. I don't know why I didn't tell anyone. As a kid, you don't think to tell someone. You think it's just something that happens to you and that's just somehow part of your life, which is never right. And I'm absolutely teaching my kids to say if anything feels wrong or even if someone uses a bad tone with them, I want them to talk about it. For some reason, I didn't speak about it, or I was too afraid to. And it might have been because of that, but it seems like they knew about it. They would have even seen the bruises, like if they were giving me a bath or whatever. I don't remember my mum or my dad or my gran or anyone ever defending me or talking to him about it or asking me about it. And it's something that I've just had in my head this entire time. And a few years ago, he, as old men tend to do, he got sick. In fact, he had a stroke, and I was visiting him in hospital, and he's just the same as he always was. And he never mentioned any of that. But afterwards, in fact, after he died, a few weeks after that, when I was about 19, I remember my dad just mentioning, like, that Granddad said to him that he regretted being so harsh to me and that kind of thing. But my Granddad never told me that. Honestly, I think there's about 50-50 chance that simply because I started bringing up his abuse, that my dad was telling me that literally just to console me. He might even have been lying about that. I don't know. My Granddad's never really been the type to apologize or think he's wrong or anything like that. I hate violence. Like, I even hated fighting with my same siblings and stuff, and that's just normal kid stuff. I've always trying to avoid conflict and avoid violence, and even after all that, and I think I turned out okay given the circumstances, and I never thought that was okay, and I never felt like that was a justified thing to do for anyone to do, especially to a kid that's that young. Like, I don't think I'm a very spiteful person. I'll try and do what's good for people, but I regret visiting him in hospital. I regret keeping him company there, and I regret going to his funeral. I wish I hadn't gone because I genuinely feel like he didn't deserve. He didn't deserve any kind of respect. Or I think he's probably the only person in my life I personally know who I genuinely hate, and I still hate. And hatred is, I've always found hatred to be such a strong word. I don't hate very many things at all in this world. I think the only food I truly hate is bananas. And that's not the same kind of hate. Like, there's no one I can say that I hate apart from that man, and even though he's gone, the damage is still there, and I still freeze up when there's shouting and there's any kind of thing like that. It even affects my relationship. Shami, she has a voice. Yeah, she has a voice. She yells. Stuff get heated, of course. Every couple, and that's totally fine. But even just that yelling, it sets something off, and it's like I can't even speak. I don't even think to defend myself or anything. I just shut down, which it tends to make things worse because that's just kills communication. And it's not like it's the same thing in any way. It's just literally the yelling in itself takes me back there because it was just endless shouting and endless violence. And I don't even know where I'm going with this. I just feel like I had to talk about it. I don't know why. Hopefully it helps in some ways. I mean, I've been chatting with Shami all day and yesterday about it, and she's been helping me through it so much. Psychology wife, props to you.
Props to us, baby.
I remember my dad telling me that he did it because he thought he had to toughen me up. And I don't know what could drive a person to think that a 3-year-old who's doing normal 3-year-old things, playing with blocks, playing around in the garden, needs toughening up, especially through beatings and verbal abuse and just complete I don't even know how to put it. Just being attacked. An adult person attacking a 3 or 4 year old. That's someone who's supposed to protect me and, take care of you. They're, it's my dad's dad, grandparents, they're supposed to care. And I just realized, there was no response from my family. I mean, I don't know who knew and who didn't know. My siblings sure as fuck knew. As a 3-year-old, you don't have a responsibility to tell someone anything because you're a 3-year-old. You don't know what's right and wrong. You don't know what you can and can't say. And especially given how scared I was all the time when I was that age, I didn't think I could say anything. And I don't even know where else I'm going to go with this, but I just don't know why, but I feel like I need to put it out there. He was a monster, and as a 3-year-old, you're just doing your stuff and you're existing and you're growing. I never understood why I was being beaten, especially on such a regular basis, and I think there is no legitimate reason to hit a kid. I mean, a kid of any age, but especially a child that young. They're not going to understand the complexities of anything that's going on, especially he was obviously an aggressive, evil, cruel old man, and maybe he was just taking that out on me, and maybe it's because his wife left him. I mean, fair enough. I mean, he was a fucking cunt, but why did he have to take that out on me, he was even more merciless when there was no one around. He needed a psychologist, that's for sure. I mean, he needed a jail cell. I'm not a violent person in the slightest, and I hate violence, even probably not because of that. I always hated it, but looking back, I wish as a 19-year-old when he occasionally came by the house, I'm not vengeful, and I'm not, maybe who knows, maybe I am, but I wish just once I could have absolutely kicked his ass. I don't enjoy suffering anything, but it honestly would have felt like for once he got what he deserved. God. Don't hit kids. Either if they're old enough to understand reason and the reasons why, then you can explain it to them. If they're not old enough to understand the reasons why, then they're not going to understand the reason why you're beating them, and so they're just going to get hurt. And nothing else, nothing's gonna, toughening up doesn't exist. It's just how much trauma you want to put a kid through and how much of a sociopath or psychopath that will make them in the future. I hope it hasn't made me a sociopath/psychopath, or that thing. It's just made me a bit PTSD and a bit... We actually looked it up, and I think the term is dissociative, because you zone out and your mentality just basically just leaves the situation and you just regress into yourself, and literally I'll just be staring at a wall like that for extended periods of time. So that's how that's affected me. So thanks, fucking Kenneth Mortimer. There are some bad people out there, and one of them was, unfortunately, I had to spend a significant portion of my childhood with, which I don't like. That a lot of my formative years were of me being beaten and hit and never knowing the reason and just being scared and confused, just so confused. I don't know how my family's going to react. I'm sure my siblings and parents and grandparents who are still around are going to see this, and they'll either find it fascinating, hopefully they won't be pissed, because I'm calling out a monster just because he's related to us doesn't mean that I shouldn't do that. Not like I'm bringing shame upon the family, because it was just him. The rest of my family are wonderful. It's a very different video than usual. Usually we're very sprightly and we're funny and having a good time, but honestly it's like my soul's been leaving my body the last few days, and it's been quite hard dealing with. I've just been having sudden dissociative episodes and even just bursting out crying once or twice, which sucks, and honestly the only person keep helping me through it is my wife. I am never ever using violence against my kids in any context, and nor is anyone else, otherwise I'll actually take their eyes.
Me too.
And one thing I want to say as well is I've seen a lot of stuff on the internet just from the discussion about that other kid I was talking about that's being hit by her mum. If you feel like it's okay to hit kids under literally any context because you were hit as a kid and you turned out fine, you didn't turn out fine. It just means that because you're trying to make it okay that violence happened to you, you're making it okay for you to put violence onto someone else. And to do that to a child is truly monstrous, and anyone who does that under any context deserves a jail cell at the minimum, because the amount of damage you're doing to a human personality, that is, their mind is forming and absorbing all of the information, all of that sensory input is being permanently stored, and it becomes part of the child's personality. And that violence and that hurt and that fear for no reason is now a permanent part of my personality, and I resent that, and I'm never going to visit that man's grave. I'm never going to think of him in a respectful tone. And I know don't speak ill of the dead, that's bullshit. That's like saying don't speak ill of Joseph Stalin.